So here I'm going to talk about applying the hook and eye tape. In the fitting, I made a marking where the two sides needed to meet for the center back closure. Those two markings mark where the center of the hook and eye tape go. So on the right opening, you can see here that I have, using a zipper foot, I have folded out my hook and eye tape with the hooks pointing up, and I have stitched very close into this fold to attach the hook and eye tape, the hook side. Now, once I have done that, I will then continue by stitching this outer portion of the hook side, using a zipper foot to get close without running into interference from the metal that's enclosed in the hook and eye tape. The ends of the hook and eye tape are then tucked tightly over the edge at both the bottom and the top, and then the hook side is folded all the way to the inside of the bodice. And I like to make the fold just a little beyond the hooks so that they're really invisible from the outside. At that point, and I'm going to use a contrasting thread, I apply what we call a prick stitch through this portion of the tape, and I continue from the top all the way to the bottom. It's a tiny little back stitch, and this anchors the hook and eye tape and is nearly invisible from the outside, and that prevents the hook and eye tape, the hook side, from rolling outward when it is hooked on the body under pressure. Again, this is called a prick stitch. On the eye side, I put the eye side of the tape, again with the eyes pointing toward the bodice, on the center back marking where that marking was for the center backs to meet. And again, you can see that I have stitched closely on the upper side, and it's possible to do the eye side of tape with a regular straight stitch foot instead of the zipper foot. If you go very carefully, you're able to stitch right over top of where the eyes are enclosed in the tape. I then anchor down the back side of the eyes along this line, and then I fold. I just take a little tuck so that what is left here acts as a self-facing. This particular bodice was made to be adjustable, so I have more rows of hook and eye tape there, which I would then color in to match the bodice, or you can dye it ahead of time. But this, on another tutu that I will show you, allows you to have a self-facing so that if there's any little gap or pulling in between the hooks and eyes, we do not see skin. Once it is folded this way, I take a hand stitch right through that edge fold, and I whip down this edge very carefully all the way down. Then, to provide further stability so that we don't have any fabric pulling or rolling under the pressure of being hooked very tightly on the body, I will then whip down this inside fold. And that is how we create the self-facing when installing the hook and eye tape on the bodice. When it is finished, it will look like this. You can see how this has been installed very nicely, and it will hook very beautifully all the way up. The final step, now that we've done the lining and we've installed the piping along the edge of the bodice, now we're ready to join the bodice to the tutu skirt. You can see that this one is already partly joined. We have to be sure to match the center of the bodice to the center of the skirt panel, which should be marked, and match the center back of the skirt to the center back of the panty, and then find a reference point to divide partway to match the side seams at the side of the skirt. I prefer to install my skirt and bodice together by hand. So I'm going to show you quickly the hand method that I use. I like to fold my bodice edge up along the piping, thus, and I lay that edge right onto that top row of netting that has been sewn onto the tutu, just like that. And I take a large, somewhat of a large, running back stitch to install the bodice onto the tutu skirt, stitching right into the ditch of where the piping meets the bodice. Now, I do have some advanced stitchers who are determined to do everything by machine, and it is possible to do this step with the sewing machine. It just takes a little clever manipulation in order to get the skirt, which has already been hooped, pushed under the machine and be able to use the machine to run a stitch right in that ditch. You would complete your stitches all the way to the center back, and then you want to take a tuck of any extra piping material and just tack it to the inside so that we have a smooth and clean rear closure to the tutu where everything meets.
I'm going to pull ridiculously tight.
Because the hook and eye tape has to hold the tutu bodice very snug. So when I do a fitting, I try to pin the bodice as tightly as the hook and eye tape will hold it shut. And this also gives me an opportunity to double check the placement for the hook and eye tape. Every dancer kind of has a different comfort level of how secure they like to have their elastic so that they just feel secure in the tutu. Does it feel equal?
Yeah, I think so.
Does this need to be tighter?
Maybe just to like the tiniest bit.
There.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Just a ever so slight bit of wrinkling right here. So what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and separate this. We're going to fix this wrinkling right here, and then we're going to take this up just about 1/4 of an inch, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's about what she needs for it to lay flat. And the wrinkling here, I think, just has to do with the stitching, so we're going to have to stretch the center front panel a little bit. Since this panel at the side front is cut on the bias, when it pulls across the body, it shrinks the seam. So if there's not enough of this panel eased into the straight front seam, then as this pulls across the body for the nice firm fit, it will shrink and cause these wrinkles, which means that we just have to separate this and ease a little more fabric up into this seam. That marks where we're going to reposition the piping and then bring the skirt up just a tad in the front. And other than that, we have a very nice smooth fit throughout the rest of the bodice. See how that feels.
Yeah, that feels better.
Good. It's not riding up at all. It feels like it's moving with you.
Yeah, it feels fine.
Great.
Yeah, I think the bottom is okay.
So no take in? Okay. We'll leave the leg elastic as is.
All right.
Good.
I like it.
Great.